Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is the inner dance of thoughts and feelings, how they play upon each other, what causes which happens first. It's an interesting chicken-egg argument, this which comes first, the thought or the feeling?
I think for most of my life, I was under the impression that a feeling was something that accompanied a thought. And the thoughts were king because that's what we studied in school, and especially in science and math. And frankly, there still is something about empiricism that I love. It's reliability, its integrity. The square root of 9 is always going to be 3. It's just the universe won't mess with you on that, and I always liked that. It was later in life, especially as a young man, as opposed to a young woman, that I began to develop an interest in emotions, not just as the color of the thought, but something more independent, maybe even a second kind of intelligence, a second way of understanding things, mental and or emotional, more parallel.
Yeah, when I started studying the two, the concept of thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, and how they interplay with each other, it got to be very confusing, actually, because there's so much written in the field and so much conflicting evidence. Like, there's some people that say there are 5 basic emotions, and some people that say there are 6 or 8 basic emotions, and then they overlap. And feelings, are feelings the same as emotions, or feelings include other kinds of sensations, and are all ideas thoughts and all thoughts ideas? It got real complicated, but to me, the more and more I learned about it, the more I was able to take the big thing, step back and see a gestalt, and make it something that's really a lot more simple. To me, it breaks down to there's 2 kinds of thoughts and there's 2 kinds of feelings. And of course, there's a rainbow of combinations thereof. But essentially, we have negative thoughts and negative feelings and positive thoughts and positive feelings. And the positive ones are love-based and the negative ones are fear-based. And when it comes to the negative stuff, it's usually the feeling, the negative feeling that causes negative thoughts that starts the spiral. And more often than not, with the positive stuff, it's the positive thought that causes the positive feeling that starts the positive cycle.
That's a very interesting point. Let's focus first on the nature of the cycle, which has a mental and emotional element in it. Fear and ignorance feed each other. Wherever you jump into that vicious cycle, anything that's scary or stressful or frightening is going to confuse us, and it's in the nature of confusion to be afraid of what we don't know and what we don't understand. So it is cyclic. And then on the other hand, we have an upward spiral, but still cyclic, still that same function where love and peace of mind and feeling safe and relaxed promotes insight and understanding. And, of course, when you get insight, you're likely to go, and you relax a little more, have a little more inner peace, a little more safety, and that promotes understanding. I think it's fascinating the way the mental and emotional nature feed each other in both ways. The negative, fear and ignorance, feeding each other, pulling you down, and then the upward spiral, peace of mind and understanding, love and understanding, promoting each other, feeding each other, but this is an upward spiral. And then on top of that, we have this concept that you've just mentioned. There is a beginning. You're saying that downward negative spiral tends to be started by the emotion?
Right, and the positive upward spiral tends to be started by the thought. That is, when we have a negative feeling, be it anger or fear or sadness or any of the combinations thereof, I think it all comes down to fear-based feelings. Usually if you're angry, it's because underneath the anger is hurt, and underneath the hurt is something you don't understand, and because you don't understand it, you're afraid of it. And that's the whole thing. Fear and ignorance is, I'm afraid of what I don't understand. So when we understand something, we lose our fear of it. And that's really the bottom line here. Any of those negative fear-based emotions that you feel, whether you feel frightened or you feel angry, causes you to have a thought. Like, let's say you have a feeling of fear, and so you have a thought of a worry thought. Something bad's going to happen, and you start to project what bad thing could happen. Usually, there's a pit of the stomach fear feeling that happens first, and then that generates the thought to try to explain it, to rationalize, why do I feel bad? Well, you blame, or you feel victimized, or you get angry at, and you have this negative thought that sort of rationalize that feeling. Usually negative thoughts don't just come out of nowhere. Usually they come from some kind of a feeling that happens inside. Now, you can have positive feelings that don't generate any thoughts at all, because positive feelings imply that you do already understand.
That's so big.
You really sort of already get it. So you don't really have to think about positive feelings. You could just feel them.
Right. Let's dwell on that. That's just so cool. Negative thoughts and the feelings that hurt, so-called negative feelings, confusion by its very nature, is stuff that needs to be understood. So it makes sense that any so-called negative feeling or emotion really has an upside to it, which is it gets your attention, it stimulates your thinking, and it says, I need insight and understanding if you want to heal me. And the great news is that all of our positive feelings, our happiness and our joy, our kindness and our compassion and forgiveness, our better angels, some would say, the better part of human nature, represents what we already do understand.
Yeah, so sometimes you can have positive feelings going on, just like whistle while you work, happiness going on, without any thoughts being generated by it. And you can generate those positive feelings intentionally, willfully, in two different ways with your thoughts. You can, for example, have the intention of pulling out of your stream of consciousness the stuff that goes by, have the intention of, like, when something interesting goes by, when something that makes you feel good go by, notice it, and pick it out. Or intentionally decide to think about something that makes you feel good. You have two ways of doing it. You can just sort of have the idea in your mind that if something upbeat, happy, positive pops into my mind, I'm going to pay attention, special attention to it. Just with that intention, you will. Or you can, sit down and have volition, have willpower, have choice, and say, I'm going to now think about that vacation I took last summer because it's going to generate in me these wonderful memories, and that's going to generate these incredible positive feelings.
Well, that is the challenge, of course, because strong negative feelings tend to trigger a fight or flight response. And then a deeper part of the brain, a much older lizard brain, takes over, and it's interested only in survival, and it pumps the adrenaline. And we've talked in past shows a lot about this autonomic or automatic reflex that's built in. To do what you're talking about doing, we have to have the awareness, or you could say the consciousness. We have to remember to take a breath, to slow things down, or just stop altogether. I personally like to say to myself, I have choices. I may not know what they are right now, but I have choices, so let me slow down. And realize, this is where the practical tools and strategies come in, that we need to substitute a kind of relaxation response for the inappropriate danger response, right? Because our fear isn't about danger, it's about what we don't know. So only by substituting this relaxation response for the automatic fight or flight response can we ever hope to know it, to bring in the higher brain functions of insight and creativity and a deeper sensitivity. The trick is to remember to do it, right? To be safe enough, frankly, to remember that you have these options.
That is the key indeed, because, you see, it's sort of a vicious cycle that you have this negative feeling, that something feels bad, so it make you angry or sad or frustrated or frightened or whatever. And so the automatic response to that is to act as if it's dangerous. We have this built-in thing, if I don't understand it, then let's react, because it might be dangerous. I don't know if I don't understand it, I don't know if it's safe. So it might be so let's do this same thing we do if something is dangerous. So we do this thing. We tighten our muscles and hold our breath. We have a physiological reaction that says to our brain we're in danger. So that's where the shift has to take place, right in that moment. Because, see, these negative feelings that we have are not about reactions to real danger. Almost never are they reactions to real danger. They're saying, there's something about me you don't understand. They're saying, I represent an unknown here. I represent something that is confusing to you because you don't get it. So the reaction to move away from it with fear, you're going to even more not get it. I mean, there's no way you're going to get it if you move away from it. So although it's counterintuitive to move toward it, that's what you must do. What you must do is have an intention of, there's nothing in that can actually hurt me. Its only power is to cause me to, tighten up and get. But if I move toward it, if I move into it, then I can examine it much more closely. I can learn to understand it, and then even though I may not like that feeling, I'll never like being disgusted or angry or frustrated. It'll have no power over me, or much less power over me, the more I understand it.
I think a lot of folks don't want to face their fear, even if they realize it's not actual danger, but just confusion. Even if they knew it was confusion, I still don't want to face it. I still don't want to go there. And yet, how are we to deal with the pain, the hurt, the sadness, the alienation, all the negative emotions, the anger that we go through as human beings, once we realize that they're all symptoms of things unknown, but by desiring to know them? So you have to face the unknown to know it. You have to identify and move directly into what makes you feel afraid to understand it, and then the fear vaporizes. I like the metaphor of fear as a shadow, because you don't have this opposing forces that we sometimes have with right versus wrong or good versus evil, as if it's a tug of war. You don't have to have much scientific background to understand that shadow is not a thing, but the absence of light, and that there's no struggle that goes on when you bring a little light into the darkness. The darkness ceases to be, because its only reality in the first place was to represent an area that is not filled with light, as opposed to this area over here.
Sure, just like cold is the absence of heat. There's no cold thing, It's like add heat, cold. Heat always beats cold,
Right. I think that's ultimately true with good and evil, that evil's really a no thing or a nothing. But on the other hand, I do believe there is such a thing. We'll have to talk about the paradox of evil as shadow in one of our future programs.
We did have a show on heroes and villains where we touched on that a bit, but we can go deeper for sure.
I think, the idea of what is evil really, not in a religious context merely, but in the larger sense. Anyway, working this allegory of a dichotomy that is in fact a dichotomy, but where we don't have opposing forces and there's no equality here. So another point is that shadows can easily be exaggerated and distorted. And I think fear is like that. Fear is usually very exaggerated and distorted, like a little mouse runs in front of the fire and you're looking at the wall and you see an elephant-sized monstrous shadow. If only you knew it was just this little mouse, you wouldn't be so afraid. I think that's what we do inside our heads and our hearts and our bodies with what we don't know and understand. All of our fears, and we're saying all of our emotional hurt, our anguish, our suffering, our longing is rooted in fear, what we don't understand about ourselves. But to know also it's really a shadow. It's not this powerful thing we need to conquer and defeat. We just need to face it.
Yeah, just a little peekaboo even is a great start, in terms of dealing with this. It has no danger. The danger in it is that you give it the power to cause your body to tighten up. But there is no danger in it if you refuse it that power. If you breathe into your negative feelings, they lose all of their power to make you feel unsafe. So the idea here is simple. The basic thing you do is when you find yourself in a spiral of negative thinking and feeling, and what you'll notice probably is the thoughts, but you'll feel it too. When you notice you're doing that thing, stop, take a deep breath, and then no matter what you were thinking, let go of that completely. Put that aside. That's extraneous now. Go back to the feeling. What feeling caused these thoughts to start happening? What were you feeling? Was it anger? Was it sadness? Was it fear? What were you feeling that caused these negative thoughts? And then go explore that feeling. And go understand why you feel sad, or why you feel afraid, or why you feel angry. Go there, and then you gain insight into yourself, then you gain power, then that whole area of your life becomes less frightening, and as you shed the light upon it, it becomes more understood.
This, of course, is one of the central tenets of psychotherapy and emotional healing, is facing what hurts you, because it's understood to be a symptom of something you don't understand. And at the center of what you don't understand is you. Yeah, it may have been stimulated by another person who, quote, made you feel this way, or it may have been a conspiracy, a whole group of people who just don't seem to understand you, or an event or a circumstance. You know, there's a certain reality to life coming at you or being done to you. But when you're conscious enough, and I know you got the potential because you're listening to this series of programs, when you're conscious enough to say, again and again, I want to understand this by making it about me. You can use your mind as much or as little as you'd like to try to understand what stimulated the feeling. But what Steve and I want to emphasize is that even if the stimulus comes at you, the emotional feeling is coming out of you. And it's very personal. It's very intimate. Now, we're not saying you go from blaming others to blaming yourself. Just drop the idea of blame altogether. We're talking about accountability and, even more powerfully, I think, responsibility. And here's the freedom and the independence that our forefathers fought for, the right to be free enough to say, I am how I think and feel about myself. And I will determine how I feel and what these feelings mean. I'll learn to manage my feelings as well as my thoughts. And I just think it's a really exciting time, the beginning of the 21st century, to watch, as we said last week, consciousness unfolding and increasing numbers of people becoming aware that they can manage their thoughts and their feelings and grow the potential that's inside each one of us.
When you're dealing with the negative thought-feeling spiral, stop and explore the feeling. Go into and try and understand the feeling. What's causing me to feel this feeling? What does this feeling tell me about me? But if it's the positive stuff you're exploring, like why am I not having enough positive thoughts and positive feelings? Why am I not happy? Why am I not as successful as I want to be? Why do my thoughts not go to allowing myself to dream really, really big? When you're exploring the positive side of the spectrum, stop and explore the thoughts. Ask yourself, what's preventing me from thinking about the best possible outcome? Why am I dreaming little? Why am I holding myself back? Why am I not letting myself think that I'm getting better and more successful and happier? Why am I holding myself back? And it's the cognitive process, I think, that you explore to enhance the emotions on the positive end. More and more positive thoughts create more and more positive feelings, whereas on the negative end, it's more the negative feelings that generate the negative thoughts.
I read a book years ago by a woman named Lucille Cederkranz where she describes this process, Steve, as being mentally polarized as opposed to the much more common emotional polarization. And what that means is to be emotionally polarized, as most people are, means that in the inner dance of, that's our title today, the inner dance of thoughts and feelings, most people being emotionally polarized means they lead with the emotion. They end up having their thoughts overwhelmed by their emotions, which leads to a behavior. And then if there's any thinking at all, it comes afterward as a kind of rationalization. You know, like that Pee Wee Herman line about I meant to do that. He falls off his bike in front of the girls and rather than lose his cool, says, I meant to do that. And we do that all the time, you know. We rationalize. We have this preset emotional motive that causes a behavior, and then we come up with these crazy excuses for why we intended to do it all along, when, in fact, it was autonomic. We reacted emotionally. But to become mentally polarized, this is what Steve's talking about here, is to take that breath, to have that presence, that awareness, that consciousness that says, hold on a minute, I got some choices here. Let's slow everything down. Let's take another breath and feel safe and relaxed. And in the inner dance, the interplay between thoughts and feelings, let's let the mental nature discern the emotional nature and determine the appropriate emotional affect which creates the behavior. Now, instead of emotion leading to behavior with a little thinking stapled on the end, maybe, it's the thought that impacts the emotion and leads to the, what do we say, well-reasoned, even-tempered decision.
Yeah, that's the key right there. The idea of going with the negative thoughts, negative feeling spiral, stopping, and instead of acting like emotion's the last thing you do before you act, you always stop, take that breath, and think before you act. And that changes the whole process. We use emotion as the partner in the dance rather than the leader of the dance, and especially in the negative stuff. We want to use our negative emotions in positive ways because nothing can teach us more about ourselves than understanding why we're afraid, understanding why we're angry, understanding why we're upset. Nothing is more important for us to learn about ourselves than those kinds of things. We can't learn about those things through happiness or through joy. We learn about those things through anger and sadness and upset. They're very valuable to us. If they're frightening to us, then we move away from them and we not only don't learn from them, but we let them lead the dance, and they cause us to have all these negative thoughts, and then we act on these emotions inappropriately, and we have all kinds of horrible things happening. But if we take and turn it around, change partners, as Stephen Still said in that wonderful song, then let the thoughts lead the dance. Let the emotions be there. I want to understand you. I want to guide you and show you the dance floor here and show you exactly how you and I can get to know each other better, because the more I understand about you, my partner fear, my partner anger, my partner sadness, the more I understand about you, then the more I understand about me.
I think that's a great metaphor, the dance, the teamwork of the dance. There's harmony to create unity, but somebody's got to lead, right? Even if it's well rehearsed. I think, same thing if you put a bunch of horses into a team to pull a big wagon, or remember out in Death Valley, the 20-mule team. Imagine getting 20 mules to pull in the same direction at the same time, to feel each other in harness and to work together to create an outcome. Well, if 20 mules can do it, then you can get your mind, your emotional nature, and your physical behavior in a proper order. And that's really what we're talking about. One of the greatest personal development instructors and writers, authors in the last century is Napoleon Hill. And he may be most famous for a quote that says, "If you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it." Well, look at the three parts and then look at the order. If you can conceive it, that's mental. That's the thinking or the volition. If you can believe it, that's the emotional nature, coming second after the conception, right? Conceive it, believe it, then you can achieve it. Here's the formula for success. So in most of your affairs, there is going to be this interplay, this inner dance, Steve likes to call it. It really is a beautiful metaphor, a dance between thoughts and feelings. But as we get it all sorted out, as we check it out and feel it out, we used to say that 25 years ago, check it out, feel it out, then act it out. Do you see the order here? And there's even in the ageless wisdom, in the ancient philosophies, a discussion of energy and force creating substance, where, again, the mental energy would have to have a force behind it, just like amperage, which is the volume of electricity, needs voltage, the electromagnetic force, to push it forward. See the same thing with water and hydraulics. Here we have that same formula. Energy needs a force, right? Thoughts need something to push them or drive them. That's what positive feelings are. So it's energy, the thought, followed by the force that drives it. Good, positive, enthusiastic feeling. Oh boy, golly gee, here we go. That creates the desired result.
So in the negative dance, The general thing that happens is that the feelings lead, and the thoughts try to explain them. We have negative thoughts to try and understand or justify or rationalize these negative feelings. And so what has to happen is the dance stops, the thinking mind takes over and says, we're going to do this dance, but I'm going to lead, and where I'm going to lead us is to understand you. I'm going to understand you, Mr. Fear or Mrs. Fear or whatever you. I'm going to understand my partner, the emotion, the negative emotion that's driving me.
I'm going to bring my light into the shadow that I might see what's already here, but I'm not seeing for the shadow.
And all that negative stuff I've been thinking about, put that aside. That's meaningless right now. Whatever I put it on, whatever the fear caused me to think about, whether it was money or whether it was about relationships or whether it was about career, whatever that was, that's just a way of explaining it. That has nothing to do with the real core issue here, which is the fear itself. So I'm going to put aside all the stuff I've been thinking about in terms of my negativity, and I'm going to explore why I'm feeling what I'm feeling that causes all those thoughts. Now, in the positive dance, the tendency, for those people who are doing great, the thoughts are leading with, great positive affirmations and great positive thoughts and intentions, and we're feeling great, and the thoughts cause great feelings, cause great thoughts. But if that side of the equation is not working well, then we have to stop the dance and say, we need to put more in thought. Thought is where we have the power to choose. We can choose more positive thoughts. I'm going to decide right now, I'm going to use my will, my volition, my ability to choose, that I'm going to purposely have positive thoughts. And what that will do is will generate positive feelings, which will generate more positive thoughts, which will generate more positive feelings. I can start the positive cycle up. I can just turn the key and start the positive cycle up. I can't just turn the key and turn off the negative cycle. I've got to confront that. I've got to look at what's hurting to be able to change that. But in terms on the positive end of the spectrum, all I got to do is turn the key. All I got to do is have the positive thought. That creates the positive feeling and reinforces the positive thought, and the whole positive upward uplifting spiral begins.
Here's a thought. Let me bounce this off you. Is it an oversimplification to say that our thinking nature, our mental nature, is primarily quantitative, while our emotional nature, positive or negative, upward or downward spiral, is qualitative?
I think that's fairly accurate.
It sort of works.
It's not just numbers, but it's big, little sizes. It's all that quantitative stuff,
and
more than less than.
Determining.
Yeah.
Figuring out. I mean, when people say, get real, get logical, get your feet on the ground, be realistic, rational thinking, it's all deductive. It's very mathematical. It's right. Factoring. Remember in algebra they had us factor to narrow down like an upside-down triangle. You end up with this tiny little answer, right? Or balancing your checkbook. I have this much money in my bank account, and I wrote these checks, and whoa, here we've got less money. I deductive logic, right? It goes from general to specific. The emotional nature tends to be a little more inductive, I think. It tends to go from the specifics to the general. I think that's where we can get the bigger picture. If we have a bunch of little bits and we want to understand the overarching concept or the connection, the bigger picture, logic can't do that. Logic doesn't go in that direction. Logic's always breaking it down, slicing it and dicing it. You want to understand a watch, you take it apart. You want to understand a math problem, you factor it. That's pretty much all we have with logic. Then another way to talk about emotional intelligence is that it's inductive. It's more creative. It moves in the opposite direction from the details to the big picture. I'd like to talk a little before our exercise about the intuitive nature of emotional intelligence, not as an illogical, but a non-logical approach to understanding.
Yeah, because if we do have emotional feelings and we have physical feelings, we also have mental feelings, and intuition is a good name for that mental, that aha, that, comes with a sense of confirmation, it comes with an understanding, somehow it all got put together. That's a mental feeling. So we do have a sort of in-between thing, a non-logical way of just putting something together in an amazingly creative way and come up with an aha, and whoa, where did that come from kind of thing.
Feels like light to me.
Like a light bulb going off is often how it's depicted.
Yeah, or the dawning of a new idea. The difference between logic and intuition is logic is this effort to break it down, right? Again, nothing wrong with that. It's very important to be a logical individual. It's just not the end of how to think intelligently. Creativity in the form of intuition or intuitive thinking, you have to be a little more patient. First of all, you have to get into a very safe and relaxed state using the kind of breathing exercises and letting go of muscular tension and maybe a little visualization as we show you from week to week here on Finding Yourself in Paradise. And then you hold the question in mind, and let's say it's, what does this feeling mean? Somebody made me feel angry. How'd they do that? Okay, I've used my mind to judge them and decided they're a jerk for making me angry, and I even called them some names and told my friends, but I'm still angry. So how do I get rid of the anger? I have to understand what it says about, guess who? Me. Remember that Eleanor Roosevelt quote, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Nobody can hurt us emotionally without our permission, without us buying in. And it's not that we know that we're bad or stupid or wrong, that we deserve the insults. It's the not knowing that causes it to hurt. So turn your attention to it, and then intuition says you just wait for it to bubble up. It's like those little bubbles in a soda or the champagne that effervesce, here it comes. You can even feel it coming. Oh, that's why I felt that way. Because I've always thought that, or because this reminded me of a time when I was really hurt, but I was too young to say anything. If I'd said anything, I would have gotten into even more trouble. And it's the realization, whether it comes like the dawn, very slowly creeping in on cat's feet, or the light bulb Steve talked about that pops on, or you may be thunderstruck, the top of your head might blow off in a sense. So illumined do we become with intuition.
Powerful stuff, this dance we have between thoughts and feelings. And just a couple final words before we move into a guided imagery and audio journey. Taking a look at the nature of the dance of thoughts and feelings when it's a negative dance going on, you want to stop the dance and explore the feeling, not the thoughts. Let the thoughts go, explore the feeling. Now, understand, you may not get the insight you're looking for. You ask yourself, why am I angry? What's this anger tell me about me? You may not get any insight at all, but just stopping the dance and exploring the feeling makes you feel proud of yourself. You know you're doing the right thing. You know you've broken out of the cycle of this negative thinking, feeling cycle. That's a bad place to be. And now you're doing some self-exploration. Now you're examining yourself. Now you're doing something really, really good for you. Even if you don't get the answer, the journey inside is what it's all about. George Harrison said it's so far out, the way out is in. If you want to get out of this mess you're in, you got to go into it. So just exploring it, just asking, what's this fear feeling? Tell me about me. Even if you get no answer, is such a valuable exercise. And then on the other end of the spectrum, when you're doing the positive dance, ask yourself, why can't I even be more positive? What's holding my thoughts back from thinking even greater things, thinking even more success, thinking even more of all the things that I want to. Well, is it a fear of disappointment? Is it I'm afraid that I am going to stand out? Even from the positive end, it can teach you things about yourself that are holding you back from the greatness that you could possibly achieve. So it's a wonderful dance if you keep in mind that you get to decide who leads.
I just love that metaphor. I've never used it. I didn't know that's what you intended to do when you said, well, not interplay, but inner dance. And wow, it's just...
makes for a great guided imagery concept, too, I think.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason to add to that. You brought that home nice. Now, as we mentioned before, none of this is going to happen automatically. You have to decide this is something you really want, that you're tired of confusion, you're tired of feeling a victim of your negative thinking, you're tired of being angry and hurt and brokenhearted and depressed, and you want to develop the tools or skill set necessary to understand what these feelings are saying about you, so they go away. They will. They're just symptoms, just like physical pain, right? Emotional pain, physical pain, both are symptoms of a condition that needs your attention. Let's pay attention. Close your eyes. Get comfortable. Sit back, put your shoulders back, and think of yourself not as rigid, but rather as nicely balanced, with your head above your shoulders, maybe a couple of head rolls and a few shoulder shrugs, and think of yourself as vertically aligned, as if you are a path of least resistance for a life force that precipitates down through you and into the earth. A gentle flow of energy that comes through you as you become more and more relaxed. You become less resistant to a light that not only animates but also illumines you and allows you to understand with even greater logic, and also to understand your emotions through intuition. Simply relax, take a few slow, deep breaths, and then allow your body to breathe itself. And as you feel really safe, maybe in a beautiful place of perfect peace, imagine sitting down to become aware of your feelings.
And in this paradise place, right here, your thoughts are few and your feelings are clear. And everything slows, and somehow you know what to do. Whether it's a thought or a feeling, some clarifying awareness comes through. So as you slow down this dance, allow yourself to take the chance to explore the feeling, whatever it be, any negative feeling that you wish to set free, be it anger or sadness or maybe even fear. Explore the feeling and let the feeling be clear. The thoughts don't matter in this exercise here. Explore the feeling and let the feeling be clear.
A phrase that works for me and I offer to you in hopes that it might work for you is to simply sit with the feeling. You may become aware of an attempt by the mental nature to want to jump in and take over. It may even feel like a distraction that the mind wants to think about it. Remind yourself, your mind has been thinking about it. And if your mental nature were enough to understand this emotion or set of emotional feelings, you'd have it all figured out by now. But emotional feelings, by their very nature, are often illogical and unreasonable. To demand an emotional feeling to make sense is to think that it's no different than a thought. Sometimes feelings don't make sense. Some feelings you'll never figure out. But a negative feeling can be resolved, understood, and released if you just spend a few minutes in this place of perfect peace watching the emotion. Give it a color if you want, or texture, or a temperature. Or something even less abstract. Ask yourself, if this emotion were an animal, what kind of animal would it be? And just sit open and receptive, waiting for ideas to percolate up. And you know the feeling of the light coming. Aha. Oh, I see. Wait a minute. There's more here. Oh, I'm remembering. I understand. And whether it comes slowly, like the dawning of a realization, or the light bulb we talked about popping on, or maybe as if you're thunderstruck by lightning, kabam! In any event, when you finish the exercise, the hurt feeling will be gone. And if it returns, if it comes back, it's just that there's more to understand. Like more Christmas gifts under the tree than you realized you just didn't see over here. I mean, all of this is ultimately for our own good. These are wonderful symptoms. All of our emotional pain and suffering, we can become quite elegant at understanding the meaning and moving through the shadow and through the hurt quickly and elegantly with grace and joy. It's all a matter of how quickly do you want to face it and understand it, and as you realize it, it'll just fall away.
So if your mind goes to the past with shame and regret, or into the future with this thinking called worry, the natural inclination as it makes you feel afraid is to move away quickly in a hurry, but instead a new dance can now take place as you rearrange in your mind's inner space to lead this dance in a different way, to look at why do I feel this way? It doesn't matter what I've been thinking. For the moment, I'll put that aside. What I'm going to explore is why I'm feeling the feeling I'm feeling inside. And regardless of whether I get any hits, regardless of if I do know, just exploring the question. Exploring the question is all it takes to help me to grow. So in the negative dance, it doesn't matter what you're thinking. Just whenever you notice, start now linking to stopping and thinking about what you're feeling. And therein begins the healing. And in the positive dance, as that goes round, notice inside your mind as you make the sounds of positive excitement and positive thrills and giving yourself this feeling of electric chills and just making yourself feel so excited within. Do that, and the positive feelings begin. It's easy to generate positive feelings inside. Just start with thoughts of confidence and pride, and start with thoughts of greatness you can create. And the positive feelings, they'll be able to relate, and they'll begin to grow. It's easy, just start with the positive thoughts, and the positive feelings will follow.
In a moment, we'll ask you to open your eyes, wide awake, alert, feeling rested and all revitalized and energized and enthusiastic, because the third element is the action. You've got the clear thought now. You've got the positive emotion, the force to drive that energy. Prepare for action steps. Maybe big leaps, maybe little baby steps. You decide what's appropriate. And feel the enthusiasm and the promise swelling within you. Your thinking is lucid and pointed at a desired outcome and a goal, and having recognized what the hurt said about you, it's redeemed. It's been saved. It's a positive feeling now of being healed and being better for the experience. as you prepare to step directly in the direction of this goal, this solution or desired outcome. Take a nice, slow, deep breath. Hold for a moment as you peak, and as you exhale, open your eyes wide awake and alert with a nice, clear memory of what we've done, and that way you can do it again and again and again, like that old shampoo instruction, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. Keep practicing these techniques. It is true that life is done to you. There's no question about it. We can be victims, or we can be caught off guard, and there's no value in blaming yourself for anything. But in the yin and yang, the give and take of life, there's also a response. And surely your interest in this whole series, finding yourself, your genuine, authentic, true self in these paradise-like states of mind, is really about that whole process of realizing who you are, being goal-oriented, and stepping into your power. Your conscious, deliberate responses are much more significant than what's merely done to you.
Yeah, so in the dance between thoughts and feelings, if you're noticing you're in a negative spiral in that dance, understand that you have some power now. That you don't have to understand why you're thinking what you're thinking. That's very complicated. But what you can understand is that by just exploring why you're feeling what you're feeling, you take yourself out of that spiral and you do something good for yourself. Regardless of whether you find an answer, just asking the question takes you out of the spiral and puts you into a very positive place. And if the other side of the equation, the dance is, why am I not feeling enough love? Why don't I have enough joy in my life? Why isn't everything as wonderful and great as it can be? Well, then know that you can start to generate those more positive feelings in yourself just by purposely having positive thoughts. Now, there's two ways you can do that. You can explore the stream of consciousness as it goes by and pick out the good stuff, or you can sit down and decide, I'm going to think about some specific good stuff. You can have a whole lot of control over this dance you have between your thoughts and feelings if you decide to step back and let the higher consciousness be the DJ.
The DJ, or the guy that conducts the orchestra.
Yeah, there you go, the conductor.
Because it's so easy to send this feed to your iTunes software on your computer and then to your iPod or other MP3 portable player, or to use the RSS reader, you might not use the site. There are some people that always listen with the built-in player on our site, but one of the advantages of going there, however you listen to our programs, is that send one to a friend gadget. Use that. Doesn't cost a nickel. That's part of your 99 cents a week, is that you receive these programs for your use, but there's no copyright. You can pass them on freely as often as you'd like to, as many people as you want. Let's get the word out there. The only enemy in this life is fear and ignorance. Every single problem that every human being has had in his or her life is rooted in fear and ignorance. Every problem can be reduced. Every adversity can be reduced to your personal fear and personal ignorance. And to share the good news that there is a way of understanding, of accelerating what I understand to eliminate the ignorance, and lo and behold, that eradicates the fear, and that helps me to understand, and that creates more love and more understanding. Send this thing out to people that you know, that you care about, people that you love, people who you know are going to benefit from it.
And if you ask me which comes first, the fear or the ignorance, I'd have to tell you I'm afraid I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm afraid to find out. As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui, from Maui, from Maui, from Maui, from Maui. From Maui, from Maui, from Maui, from Maui, from Maui, from